Welcome to another episode of I'm Dying to Tell You. This is Dr. Mark Goulston. As you can probably tell, I'm not in my usual setting where I usually record in my office. It's because I'm transitioning. You've caught me at home, and I will shortly be going into the hospital for a several week stay, during which I'll have something called a bone marrow transplant, which I'm optimistic about how it will work out. And so I'm looking forward to that. What I wanted to talk to you about today is something I call somebody oblige. Somebody oblige. Uh, there was a saying, I think it dates back to the French Revolution, of noblesse oblige. And what that meant is that there is a responsibility of the nobility, a moral responsibility to care for those who have nothing, and to be generous and to be selfless with regard to them. Um, I think there's also an obligation if you happen to be a somebody in the world. And I will tell you, it takes very little if you're a somebody to confer upon someone who is a nobody visibility. There are many people in the world who don't even feel that they're an anybody. They feel like they're a nobody, and they feel invisible. And maybe that's why there's such a big push in social media where people say, look at me, I exist. But if you're a somebody, there's a power you have where you can take someone who is determined that they're a nobody, and you can give them a taste of being not just anybody, but somebody. I'm reminded of a story many years ago when I was co hosting a show at the public radio station at Pasadena City College with a wonderful co-host named Linda Clegg. And when I was a guest co-host, the show, which was called Ebony, because she's African American, was called Ebony and Ivory because I'm not. And she said, why don't you join me and help me in a class that I'm teaching to basically immigrants on critical thinking at Cerritos Community College. It was an evening class. It wasn't executive education. These were immigrant youth, usually in their late teens or 20s, who were working a couple jobs and coming to do this. So I attended the class, and she asked me if there was an exercise that I could come up with that would help them. And there was a videographer there. And I said, I have an idea. Put me in the center of the circle. And in the circle, there were probably 40 students around me, uh, very few white Americans, and mainly people from Vietnam, some African Americans, some Hispanic, and a number of immigrants who were working during the day. And I told the videographer, I want you to take your camera and I want you to aim it at each of the students as I ask them a question. And the question I asked them was, what is something that nobody in the world understands about you? And as we went around the room, they were all feeling nervous about what are they going to say? What are they going to say? And what I noticed is close to 50% of them were saying the same things. What they were saying is, nobody in the world understands why I want to take a class like this so I can better myself. You know, my family is telling me you work two jobs. What do you need to go to school at night? And nobody understands that. I got halfway around the room and I said, have any of you noticed that your answer to what is something that nobody in the world understands about you is the same? Isn't that a little bit ironic? And so we continued the exercise. At the end of it, a young man in his 20s, I believe from Vietnam, he started crying. And I said, what are you crying about? And he said, I've been in the United States for 5 years, and this is the first moment when I've ever felt like I belonged anywhere. and it's all going to go away when our class tonight ends. After the class, Linda told me that some students wanted to take her and I out for dinner in some local restaurant. So a few weeks later, we went to a local restaurant. I forget there was some exotic kind of food, but I forget what it was. And it was a great evening. And we talked to them about their dreams, their hopes, their fears. And I'll never forget, as we left, there was this really short, sweet-looking young Hispanic woman. She must have been all of 4'10", named Esperanza. And we're walking to the parking lot, and she looks at me, and she can't quite make out what I'm doing. And I looked at her and I said, Esperanza, why are you staring at me? And she said, people like you do not spend their evening with people like us. Wow. And I'm not really a somebody. But I guess in her eyes, she thought I was. Something else that I shared, here's another story that I think I've shared in another video. I did a TEDx talk called What Made You Smile Today? And it was a movement we tried to start before the pandemic, and maybe we'll get the movement going again. Because what makes me smile is being able to share these stories with you. And in the TEDx program, What Made You Smile Today, and I think you can get it, I told the story of a young man in India named Arul. And we were having some sort of exchange by email. And at the end of it, I remember typing it to him, Arul, what made you smile today? So he sends me back an email and he says, nobody as important as you has ever typed my name. So every day I go to my computer and I touch the screen where you typed my name. That made him feel not just visible, but it's almost like he got a somebody graft by just noticing him. So if you're watching this and in any setting the world can view you as a somebody, you really have this power. And I think it's an obligation to help so many people in the world who feel like nobodies, to give them the gift of your noticing them, looking into their eyes, telling them that they not only exist, but they're worth your attention. So I hope you won't take your somebodyhood for granted, and you'll use that. And it's amazing what you can do for many of the people who don't feel worth anything. So I hope you'll do that. Make that a New Year's resolution for all of you. Until next time, take care. The next time I probably will be in a hospital. And so I will speak to you from there. Bye-bye.